Hello everyone! Tonight we are standing on the edge of a steamy floodplain where the sun never quite sets and the insects are the size of your foot. You're not even born yet, but somewhere beneath a mat of steaming moss and lichen, your egg twitches. The cracks begin to show. The mud around you shivers as if the world's heart just skipped a beat. When your tiny head bursts through the leathery shell, the first thing you feel is not hunger or air or even fear. It's your tail. It flails all on its own. Long way too long. It jerks like it's trying to leave without you, a living whip with no sense of grace or cooperation. You don't have time to think about it because you're already face first in muck and your body hasn't figured out walking yet. That's right. You're a baby dinosaur, born tail first into a world that doesn't wait. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I do here. And hey, tell me where you're watching from and what time it is over there. I always love seeing who's still awake with me. Now, turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's get started tonight. You twitch in the shadows of a prehistoric marsh under ferns that tower like broken umbrellas. Rain is always falling, except when it isn't. But even in those rare dry hours, the air still tastes like boiling pond water and distant sulfur. Your siblings haven't hatched yet or didn't make it. Doesn't matter. You're alone now, and the tail is already dragging you forward like it knows a shortcut. The funny thing is, you haven't really walked yet. Your back legs are stubby. Front limbs barely functional. But this tail longer than your whole body and twitching like it's got ambitions of its own, it's the only reason you're moving at all. From the outside, you'd look ridiculous, like a noodle with an attitude problem. But from inside your own skin, it's all terror and instinct. You shuffle toward the first flicker of warmth, flopping past a beetle, the size of a cereal bowl. It hisses and runs, wise choice. Your tail slaps the ground so hard it echoes like a drum. That wasn't intentional. You don't even know how you did that. Somewhere above, something enormous and feathered screams. You freeze. Your tail doesn't. It curls slightly and smacks the ground again, like a toddler with a frying pan. Historical fact. Paleontologists now believe that some species of dinosaur embryos developed disproportionately long tails in the egg long before the rest of their bodies caught up. This wasn't a design flaw. It was a feature. A first-mover advantage in a world that had no mercy. You finally get under cover, a soggy thicket of horsetails, and collapse. Your tail rests across your side like a sleepy snake. You nap for 6 seconds, then the tail flicks and jerks you awake again. It's restless. It wants to go. You're starting to think you're just a passenger in a long, scaly taxi you didn't order. And here's something odd. You can't blink. Your species didn't evolve that. So while you drift in and out of consciousness, your eyes stay open. Fantastic. It's like trying to sleep during a horror movie marathon where your tail is the jump scare. A nearby fern rustles. Your tail goes rigid. You don't. It lifts slightly, trembling at the tip, and you feel a pulse. You don't see it, but something is moving underground. Something large. Your tail begins to vibrate like a tuning fork catching tremors in the mud. That's the moment you realize it's not just a limb. It's an antenna, a weapon, a seismograph. Historians still debate whether dinosaurs with oversized tails had early sensory advantages or whether their tails were purely locomotive in early life. But for you tonight, it's clearly both. You drag yourself forward, again led entirely by your tail's judgment. If it swerves left, you follow. If it slaps forward, you freeze. It is your guardian and your tyrant. And right now it's trying to warn you about something. Something in the puddle ahead. A slow ripple too calm to be natural. You instinctively curl your tail upward like a question mark. Then, thwap, it slaps the surface of the puddle just as something toothy lunges from beneath. Water splashes, but you're already backing away, mostly because your tail yanked you that direction. You survive, barely. thanks to a tail that apparently has better reflexes than you do. Here's your off-topic fact for the night. In the modern world, the animal with the fastest tail reflex relative to body size isn't a lizard, it's the mantis shrimp. Its tail flick can create cavitation bubbles in water that burst with the heat of the sun. Don't try cuddling one. Back in the marsh, you slump into the roots of something ancient and dripping exhausted. Your tail finally stills coiled around you like a boundary line. You're safe for now, but you know what's coming. The tail's going to grow again soon, maybe even overnight. You feel it in your bones literally. There's a deep itch in your spine, like something stretching, like scaffolding being added to a tower that hasn't finished falling. Sleep comes without comfort, but it comes. The tail doesn't sleep, though. It never does. By morning, though, it's hard to tell with the canopy choking out the sky, you've already grown another inch. Not in your legs, not in your neck, just the tail. It's heavier now, heavier and louder. When you try to walk, it drags a shallow trench behind you, gathering leaves, mud, and the occasional confused insect. You wobble, you try again, you collapse sideways, tail first, again. The pattern is clear now: tail, before legs, motion, before balance. Your body hasn't caught up. You're like a shopping cart with 4 uneven wheels and one that has a mind of its own. You grunt. Your species doesn't have language, but instinct mutters constantly and pulses in your bloodstream. The message today is simple: move or be moved. You don't choose where to go. You obey the tail. It snaps west and you roll over like a poorly folded tent. It snaps again and your feet try to keep up. You're not walking, you're being flung into motion, a series of tiny catastrophes disguised as locomotion. That's when it happens, your first upright step. Not much to brag about, really. It's more of a controlled fall that doesn't end in face planting. But still, history's made in sloppy increments. A flash of movement above distracts you, some feathery thing gliding between branches. Your tail reacts not just with a flick, but a full swing, horizontal and deliberate. It makes a sound that startles even you, a low whoomp as it cuts the air like a whip made of bone and cartilage. Your balance goes out the window and you topple. This time into a log filled with bugs. Congratulations, breakfast. Congratulations. Authoritative fact time. For certain sauropod species and other long-tailed dinosaurs, fossil evidence shows growth patterns where caudal vertebrae tailbones elongated at a much faster rate than the rest of the skeleton during juvenile stages. The tail wasn't just decorative, it was a built-in prehistoric survival mechanism. While you chew on leggy grubs that taste like rotten licorice, your tail continues its little dance, tracing circles in the dirt, curling into spirals like a giant fern fiddlehead. You're not steering it, it's exploring on its own. It jerks suddenly, and you spot the reason: fresh prints in the mud. Not yours. Not safe. You don't know what made them, but your tail's on high alert. You follow it, not because you're brave, but because it won't let you do otherwise. You skid down a shallow slope, almost surfing on slick roots, and splash into a brackish pool. The tail jerks upward, arcing above you like a banner in the wind. Joke break: if dinosaurs had social media, yours would have gone viral for worst baby parkour attempt, sponsored by Tail Talk. The pool stinks. There's sulfur here and warmth rising from the depths. Your tail dips into it cautiously, then curls back like it touched something electric. You realize too late the pool is bubbling, not boiling exactly, but not something you should be paddling in. You yank yourself out, legs slipping, tail thudding hard against a nearby tree. The noise echoes. That's a problem. Predators in this world don't have great vision, but they listen, and you just announced yourself like a gong. You flatten against the moss, tail stretched behind you like a faulty bridge. You don't breathe. You wait. Then it comes a low growl, barely a whisper. Something out there has ears. Big ones. Your tail curls into a tight coil, again hugging your body like a shield. You don't question the move. You let it happen, and that saves you. Whatever was prowling nearby, something lean and fast and toothy, sweeps past your hiding place without stopping. Maybe it didn't see you. Maybe it was scared off by the sheer noise you made. Maybe your tail's shape mimicked something larger. Historians still debate whether long tails helped juvenile dinosaurs pretend to be more dangerous than they were, by dragging large shadows or creating misleading silhouettes. You're still shaking when you crawl out. Your legs have stopped wobbling slightly. Your tail, satisfied, resumes its endless twitch. Odd fact for the night. There's a lizard in the modern world called the African rockagama, whose tail reflects ultraviolet light, making it invisible to humans but a glowing billboard to other lizards. Maybe your tail glows too. You wouldn't know. You don't have that kind of eyesight, but the way other creatures glance and look away, you're starting to wonder. By dusk again, if this place even has a proper dusk, you've moved maybe 50 feet. It felt like miles. Your body aches, especially where your legs try to keep up with your overclocked rear end. But there's something else now, a low hum in the earth that your tail responds to. You feel it through the mud, the roots, the shallow trickles of ancient groundwater, a distant quake, or herds on the move. Either way, your tail wants in. You stumble toward a ridge, a low, slick rise coated in soft lichens. The top looks inviting, safer, drier. You try to climb, but your legs are tired. So your tail helps, curling around nearby roots, giving leverage, flicking you upward like a spoon flipping scrambled eggs. You land at the crest with a graceless grunt and stare down the other side. There it is. Your first glimpse of what lies beyond the nursery zone. Deeper forest, darker water, louder noises. You don't know what it all means yet, but your tail does. It thumps softly. Once, like a heartbeat, you wake to the sound of your own tail smacking a tree. Not by accident, by intention. Not yours though, its own. You're not even fully conscious yet, still fogged from a sleep so dreamless it felt more like being unplugged. But your tail? It's already clocked 3 measured strikes against the same hollow trunk, and every hit sends a low, woody thrum through the air. You blink. The rhythm's too steady to be random. You roll upright eyes, wide limbs stiff, and stare at the tree. There's nothing special about it, but your tail acts like it's found an instrument. Maybe a door. Maybe both. You try to interrupt. Doesn't work. It resumes. Thump, 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 thump. You wince. That last one echoed too far, but your tail is convinced this means something. Here's your historical fact. In some dinosaur species, especially those with exaggerated tail structures like Shunosaurus or Alamosaurus, the vertebrae show adaptations suggesting tail use beyond balance, possibly for communication, low-frequency signaling, or even infrasound. Your tail apparently thinks it's a percussionist in a one-lizard band. You hunch low, trying to shrink your outline. You're already weirdly shaped, longer than anything else your size. Your center of gravity is unreliable. If someone had to draw your silhouette, they'd probably guess you were 2 animals stitched together with too much tail and not enough neck. You take a tentative step and immediately overcorrect. Your front foot lifts too high, your back foot slips. You rotate sideways into a bush. Somewhere, a distant frog sounds like it's laughing. Joke time. If you were trying out for Cretaceous Ninja Warrior, you just failed the balance beam in record time. Frustrated, you slam your tail in the dirt. The shockwave makes a cricket leap directly onto your face. You shriek. Or, well, your species' version of a shriek, a sort of low surprised grunt that sounds like a cough underwater. Your tail curls again, defensive this time. And you start to realize something? It's not just an instinctual thrashing thing. It's learning, reacting, getting faster at interpreting the world, faster than you are. You reach a clearing fringed with stones, some round, some sharp, all wrong. At the center, a hole, shallow, dark, just big enough for a small dinosaur, and a mistake. You edge closer. Your tail flicks left and coils hard, pulling your body to a stop. Something down there is breathing. You don't see it, but your tail picked it up instantly. Vibrations heat something unseen. You flatten against a tree root and listen. The breath from the pit comes slow-labored, not sleeping, waiting. Your tail curls tight like a question without an answer, and you back away. Smart. First smart move all day. Historians still debate whether early sensory use of tails was adaptive behavior or emergent something that only developed as dinosaurs grew into their adult niches. But you're living proof it's happening now. This tail is no leftover. It's ahead of the curve, literally. Suddenly, a burst of motion off to the right. A pair of small feathered bipeds dart past their tail stubs by comparison. They chirp like panicked birds and vanish into the underbrush. You freeze. Then it hits the smell. Sharp, gamey wet with something just killed. And heavy behind it, footfalls. 1, 2, then silence. Your tail stretches behind you like a tightrope, motionless waiting. Your feet hover above ground without stepping. You barely breathe. Then snap a twig, and from the foliage, it steps into view. Tall, covered in something that looks like oil-slicked feathers. Not fully grown, but deadly. Its snout glistens. Its eyes are too small for its head. It doesn't see you yet, but its tail is short, clumsy. You have the advantage barely. You begin to inch backward, but your tail suddenly curls inward and taps your foot. You freeze. Tap again, 3 beats. You wait. A moment later, the wind shifts and the predator turns, walking away. Not because it saw you, because you didn't move. Because your tail knew what it needed to hear. You almost laugh. But then you remember the thing in the pit. This world doesn't need more noise. Off-topic fact of the night. Some human children, when blindfolded, can learn to echolocate clicks with their mouths to detect nearby walls and shapes like bats, but clumsier. You're starting to wonder if your tail is your sonar, your antenna, maybe even your older sibling. You climb higher ground now. It's not much, just a dry bluff where the moss is thinner and the wind whispers louder. Your tail lifts as you do, counterbalancing perfectly. For the first time, you walk more than 5 steps without tipping. There's a strange joy in it, almost pride. You pause at the edge of the rise, and your tail, now 5 inches longer than it was when you hatched, flicks behind you with the confidence of a conductor. You stare at the tree line. Something glimmers, not light, not water, maybe a carcass, maybe another of your kind. You step forward, and your tail doesn't stop you. That's new. The slope down from the bluff is slick with moss and old clay, but that doesn't stop you. Your feet aren't ready for this terrain, not even close, but your tail is already mapping each micro-slope, each rock's edge, each puddle. You don't descend so much as surf on vertebrate intuition. Your legs tumble, your jaw clips a vine. But your tail keeps you from falling all the way. When you hit the bottom, the ground changes. It's damp, sure, but not wet. Not surface wet. Underfoot, the mud is hollow. Breathing. And here's the uncomfortable realization: you're walking on the ceiling of something else's home. You pause. Then your tail stiffens. You move forward anyway, and that's how you find the burrows. Big ones. Intertwining like veins, some wide enough for you to crawl into, others just large enough to whisper fear through. You press a claw to the entrance of the nearest one. The soil crumbles like stale bread. You sniff the air. It smells like mushrooms and old teeth. Inside the tunnels, it's almost quiet. Not quite silence, but close. Every breath you take echoes down through the dark like a drumbeat that doesn't belong to you. You step inside. It's not walking anymore. It's crawling. Your body barely fits, but your tail, forget about it. It drags behind you like a rolled-up carpet, knocking into everything. At some point, you stop trying to lead it. You just pull yourself forward and let it crash. Another foot in, then another. The tunnel curves. Your tail is wedged tight. Now, panic rises. Your legs scrape uselessly in the packed clay, and you feel that ancient reptilian dread, the fear of not being able to turn around. Joke time. You've basically invented the prehistoric version of getting stuck in a t-shirt 2 sizes too small with teeth waiting at the other end. But the tail begins to shift. Not violently, strategically. It loosens itself segment by segment, inch by inch. You feel vertebrae flexing and a cascade behind you realigning until it threads the tunnel like rope. Authoritative fact: caudal vertebrae in some early dinosaurs especially, coelurosaurs, show complex articulations that allowed for incredible lateral flexibility, not just for balance, but for maneuvering through tight terrain. Finally, the tunnel widens, just enough for you to stand well crouch. The walls shimmer faintly with some kind of fungus that glows in the dark. That's when you realize you're not alone. There are bones here, not scattered arranged. Skulls and spines placed in concentric rings surrounding some central hollow where the soil dips. You don't understand it, not really. But your tail curls close to your body, now cautious, reverent. You inch forward. The bones aren't fresh. Nothing smells of rot. But the air feels used, like it's already been breathed too many times. Then a sound, a drag, something behind you. You spin, but the tunnel is empty. Your tail slams into the roof and dirt rains down on your back. Historians still debate whether early dinosaurs engaged in any form of ritualistic behavior. Bone arrangement cite reuse predator deterrence. But findings of repeated nesting or communal burial spots suggest some kind of deeper, instinctual pattern. Maybe what you're standing in was once a den, or a crypt, or worse, both. You don't wait to find out. You retreat tail first, navigating like it's got rearview mirrors. You scrape a claw, you hit your snout, you hiss, but you're moving. And then just as you reach the tunnel's mouth again, your tail freezes. You freeze with it. Outside, the forest has gone silent. Birds stopped calling. Bugs stopped buzzing. Something's above the burrow, waiting. Odd fact of the night: there's a species of modern cave cricket that senses predators, not through sight, but through microscopic shifts in humidity caused by the breath of approaching animals. Your tail? Probably better. It curls under you protectively, then flexes. Suddenly you bolt, not forward but back into the tunnel. You wait. Heart pounding, your tail taps the floor. Once, twice, then thud. The roof above depresses slightly. Whatever it is, it's heavy. You do the only thing you can think of. You start digging. Not up, down. Your front claws aren't built for it. But you're faster than you thought. Your tail coils and presses against the walls, bracing you as you carve a new downward tunnel. And then you fall just a short drop into a lower chamber. It stinks, but you're safe. Above the sound of whatever was prowling fades, you exhale. You're covered in clay, mottled in ghost fungus. Every inch of you smells like mildew and dinosaur sweat, but you're alive. Your tail, it relaxes, slowly uncurls, like a knot untied. That's when you realize it's grown again. A full hand's length longer than yesterday. Proportional now. Not even close. If anything, you look more ridiculous than ever. But the tail saved you. Again, you curl up in the hollow. The only sound is the quiet clicking of some small arthropod colony nearby. You shut your eyes. The tail rests across your flank like a warm scarf. No dreams, just the rhythmic flick of something keeping watch while you sleep. It starts with a sound, a low, steady thud that isn't yours, then another. You blink awake in the dirt chamber, your breath already shallow. Something's out there again. But this time it's not moving. It's responding. Your tail is lifted slightly off the ground, poised like an antenna tip twitching to some unheard frequency. And then you hear it, no feel it. A rhythm, not a footstep, not a predator, a pattern. 3 knocks. Pause. 1 more. And your tail answers. Thump. Pause. Thump. Thump. Like it knows the language. You lie there stunned. Did you just say hello or declare war? Your tail doesn't wait to explain. It resumes the tapping, soft, calculated, like it's building something invisible with sound. The cavern hums with every beat, each note deep and smooth, almost melodic. Weird fact of the night: the modern palm cockatoo is one of the only birds known to drum with sticks rhythmically on purpose, using tools not to hunt but to make music. Scientists still argue whether it's for mating marking territory or just because. Now your tail is pulling the same trick. In a hole. Alone. But you're not alone. From deeper down the tunnel comes a return signal. The same rhythm. Faint but perfect. 3. Pause. 1. Your tail stiffens so fast it knocks pebbles across the chamber. You scramble to your feet, every muscle vibrating with ancient tension. Your tail takes the lead again, curling downward into the dark like a question with no good answers. You follow it. Because what else would you do? The tunnel narrows, then widens. The earth here has been polished clay smoothed by repeated passage. Scratch marks not clawed but scraped, like tails, lots of them. Authoritative fact. Some paleontologists believe certain species of small dinosaurs may have communicated through seismic signals, low-frequency tail thuds transferred through the ground undetectable to most predators. The fossil record shows peculiar wear patterns in tail vertebrae that suggest repeated ground contact and rhythm. That's what you're doing now. Or, more precisely, what your tail is doing. You just happen to be attached to it. You reach a junction in the tunnel. It forks left and right, but your tail doesn't hesitate. Left, always left. Then a head movement. Not the slithering horror you feared. Not a predator. Another dinosaur. Small, tail long but not as long. Thin neck alert, eyes, and that same twitching tail beat like a tribal handshake. You both freeze. It mimics your posture. And then tap, 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 tap. Your tail answers without checking in with you. Tap, tap, pause, tap. Joke time. Congratulations, you're on the worst dating show in the Cretaceous. No roses, just tail beats and a shared allergy to predators. You and the stranger circle slowly. No aggression, just observation. Your tails twitch in harmony, not quite touching. You wonder if this is what it means to be understood. Then something strange happens. Your tail makes a sound you've never heard before. A scrape, a shuffle, a rolling thump like dragging a rock across hollow bark. The other dinosaur copies it, improvises, answers with a click of its claws and a double thump. You're jamming. Historians still debate whether dinosaurs had vocal calls like birds, deep infrasound like elephants, or relied more on bodily percussion, tail beats, foot stomps, or jaw snaps. No one agrees. But if they could see you now, they'd probably write a whole paper about this duet in the dirt. The moment doesn't last. You both freeze as a high-pitched screech echoes from the world above. Your new companion bolts left. You do the same. You emerge into a narrow exit tunnel slick with moisture. Roots dangle like tentacles from the ceiling. Ahead, daylight. Not full sunlight, just gray, overcast light filtered through trees. As you step into it, you realize how absurd your tail's gotten. It now curves like a question mark behind you, longer than your body and twice as expressive. You don't even walk anymore. You counterbalance. You find a dry patch near a stump. You settle, in tail curling beside you. And for the first time, you try tapping the rhythm yourself, deliberate, not instinctive. 3. Pause. 1. Your tail does nothing. It's resting, like it's saying, finally you're catching up. Off-topic fact. In the Amazon, some frogs use foot drumming to communicate through the forest floor because vocal calls wouldn't carry through the thick leaf litter. Maybe what your tail's doing isn't new, it's just forgotten. You look back towards the tunnel. No sign of the other dinosaur. No echoes. But you still feel the rhythm in your body. You tap the earth again. Just once. Not asking a question, just saying, I'm here. The wind answers with a hush through the ferns. Your tail doesn't move, but you know it heard it too. By now, walking feels almost natural if you define natural as being yanked forward by your own tail and somehow managing to stay upright. Your legs have grown stronger, sure, but they still play second fiddle to that serpentine appendage leading the charge. It carves the path. You just tag along like luggage with eyes. Today the air smells different. Less fungus, more dust, and something else. Sulfur number ash. You follow your tail down into a gully carved from centuries of rain, and that's when you see them. The trails. Not animal paths, not erosion lines. These are deliberate. Wide sunken lanes pressed deep into the clay like ancient wagon tracks, but made by creatures so massive they didn't need wheels. You step into one. It's still faintly warm. A tremor passes through the ground, tiny, subtle. You freeze. Your tail doesn't. It curls, twitches, then lowers flat against the earth like it's trying to listen. You follow its lead, flattening your belly to the ground. The vibration comes again, rhythmic, heavy. Your tail begins to sway not randomly but with purpose, mimicking the pulses, matching them. And that's how you know something huge is moving nearby. Not stalking, marching. Authoritative fact. Some sauropods, those iconic long-necked giants, left behind herd corridors and fossilized floodplains, revealing patterns of communal movement. These weren't just tracks, they were signals etched into the earth. You hear in this moment you've stumbled onto one of those very paths. And your tail is reading it like Braille. The tremors intensify and then they stop. You crouch under a low bush with fronds that smell like pickles' eyes scanning the trees. Then movement. A tree sways, another bends, and then one of them isn't a tree at all. It's a leg. A tower of flesh, moss-flecked and dusted with dried mud stretching so high you can't see the top. You hold your breath. Your tail curls instinctively beneath you. Then comes the sound, not a roar, not a snarl, just a groan like mountains shifting. One step, then another, then more. A herd moving past just beyond the veil of trees. You don't run, you watch, and you feel. Every step sends another message into the earth, a low seismic signature your tail processes better than your mind. There's a language in these vibrations: fear, distance, speed, direction. Your tail translates it in real time. And then another signal closer, sharper. Your tail stiffens. You dive just in time as a small predator lunges from a rock outcrop, snapping its jaws inches from your spine. You roll. It follows. You're too slow, too awkward. But your tail is ready. It whips to the side and cracks against the thing's snout with a pop that echoes like a thunderclap. The predator shrieks and retreats, tripping backward into a puddle of its own pride. You don't wait. You scramble toward the nearest hollow log. Once inside, panting, your tail curls protectively at the entrance. It doesn't twitch, doesn't gloat. It guards. Historians still debate whether certain dinosaur species wielded their tails consciously, like whips weapons or tools, or if such movements were purely reactive. But in your case, there's no doubt. That strike. That was a choice. You watch the predator retreat, tail between its legs, ironic really. Yours could bench press its entire bloodline. Off-topic fact. In 2020, researchers discovered fossil evidence of tail injuries in herbivorous dinosaurs that match the trauma of whip-like impacts, implying intra-species combat or defense through powerful tail strikes. Basically, prehistoric tail slap contests. You crawl out slowly. Eyes still scanning tail, still poised. The trail resumes to your left, but something's changed now. You don't just follow the trail, you read it. You notice the spacing of the grooves, the shallow swales where the earth has hardened under decades of pressure. And here's what you learn. The herd moved slowly. It wasn't fleeing. And the smell, not just ash, charcoal. You follow the tracks over a ridge of scorched earth. The trees here are blackened, charred. Something burned recently, but the herd moved through it, not away from it. You glance back, tail arcing like a question mark again. Something doesn't make sense. You press your tail to the ground one more time. Nothing. No tremor, no call, just silence. Then a new sound, your favorite kind. The distant tapping of another tail. Not yours, not random. The rhythm is different this time. Curious, careful, like a question. You tap back, short, light, affirmative. Then from the trees ahead, a familiar shape emerges. It's the one from the tunnel, the other long-tailed wanderer. Taller now, thinner, still twitching in rhythm. You approach cautiously. Both tails flick, then brush the ground simultaneously. Not a handshake, not a greeting, a signal. We are not alone. Not anymore. You stand there half in shadow, half in ash, blinking at the other long tail. For a second, neither of you moves. The forest behind them is burned to a crisp. The air smells like wet charcoal and steamed moss. Their tail moves first, a low sweep across the ground, slow enough to suggest they're not here to compete. Your tail mirrors it. Then, side by side, you both begin to move not toward anything, just forward, together. The terrain slopes downward again, and your tails naturally weave in synchronized arcs, avoiding rocks, compensating for roots. You don't speak, neither of you can, but the rhythm between you is steady, a kind of prehistoric tempo. Two percussionists in a world that never invented drums. You come across a split log half-rotted, covered in moss like green velvet. The other dinosaur pauses. Their tail taps once, wait. You pause too. They lean down and sniff. Then you both hear it, a dragging sound. Not fast, not frantic, just constant. From under the log emerges something wrong. It has no eyes. Just pale sockets, sunken into gray skin as if light never touched it. Its legs are small, tucked beneath its bloated body. But its mouth is enormous, stretching from jaw to neck, lined with tiny backward-facing teeth like broken glass arranged by a sadist. Your tail stiffens. So does your companion's. Neither of you makes a sound. The creature doesn't notice you yet, but it's hungry. The way it moves, mouth half open, tongue twitching. It hunts by scent and vibration, not sight. You don't run. That would give you away. You do what your tail tells you: stand still, make no sound. Authoritative fact. Some Triassic predators were believed to be burrowers or semi-subterranean ambush hunters. Fossil evidence from early carnivores like Batrachotomus suggests adaptations for low-light, smell-based tracking and auditory sensitivity. Not every threat in the ancient world had eyes. Your companion slowly slides behind a nearby stone. Their tail disappears with a fluid, practiced motion. You follow suit, lowering your head until your nostrils brush the earth. The creature stops. Its tongue flicks out, sniffs the air, then it shudders. Something it felt in the ground? A vibration? Your tail curls tightly to your flank, no contact with the soil. Just a coil, just stillness. Then the creature moves away slowly, mindlessly, into the underbrush. You both exhale. Not a breath, a tremor, like air remembering how to move again. Joke time. That was the prehistoric equivalent of hiding from a T-Rex by pretending to be an oddly shaped shrub. 10 out of 10, Oscar-worthy. You and your companion continue quieter now. You no longer walk. You flow. Every step is deliberate. Every touch of your tail against the forest floor is measured. You've both learned this world doesn't belong to the loud. You come across a stream. Shallow, cool, and oddly quiet. No frogs, no birds, no insects. That's never a good sign. You crouch and drink, tail arcing up and over you like an umbrella. Your companion does the same. Then your tail flicks just once, danger. You freeze. Across the stream, crouched in the reeds, is another creature. It's hard to see at first. Its coloring mimics stone, but the posture gives it away, crouched, ready to spring. Big eyes, bigger teeth, but no tail. That's what stands out. It has a stub, not bitten off, just naturally short. And in this moment, that stub is its weakness. Because your tail is faster, you both lurch backward as it pounces. But your tail mid-arc already cracks across the water, striking the predator mid-air. It screeches and falls, splashing helplessly. Your companion's tail moves two lower, sweeping the predator's legs as it struggles to stand. 2 hits, 2 tails. 1 message, no. The thing crawls away, yowling. And you realize your tails didn't just defend you. They worked together. Historians still debate whether cooperative behavior in small non-avian dinosaurs existed in any complex form. Most assume solitary habits, but fossilized group tracks and joint nesting grounds challenge that. Tonight, you rewrite a little of that story. Off-topic fact. In modern monitor lizards, tail whipping isn't just defensive, it's tactical. Some species coordinate tail strikes with movement to confuse prey or signal to others. You've now seen a prehistoric version of that tag-team tail combat. As night settles in, you both nestle beside a rock outcropping. You curl up, tails aligned, not touching, but aware. The stars above are dim tonight. A mist rises. The forest is alive but quietly. You close your eyes, your tail flicks once in your sleep, and somewhere just barely audible your companion's tail answers. By dawn, if you can call the pale gray between mists dawn, you're already on the move again. No fanfare, no morning ritual. Just motion. Instinctual, continuous quiet. The forest around you smells different. Wetter, older. The canopy thins. More sky leaks through pale and dappled, the color of bruised stone. You and your companion have fallen into a rhythm. Not quite a herd, not quite a pair. Something in between. You don't speak. You don't need to. Your tails do all the talking, soft touches against soil, occasional rhythmic thuds, sometimes a twitch like punctuation at the end of a thought. If anyone's watching, they probably assume you're just twitchy. Or having a conversation with the dirt. You're not. You're navigating. And you're learning. You crest a hill of old volcanic rock, and that's when you see them. Dozens, maybe more. Grazers. Cousins, but not your kind. Short-tailed, wide-backed, plodding across the valley floor with the deliberation of old ships drifting in a silent harbor. They move in loose clusters, munching lazily on fern thickets. One sneezes loudly enough to shake a tree. You pause. So does your companion, and in that moment you both realize the same thing. They're vulnerable. No tail signals, no seismic awareness, no rhythm, just bulk and repetition. If something were to sneak up on them, they'd never know until it was too late. You descend toward them slowly, tails held high like signal flags. The grazers notice, their heads lift lazily. Some snort. One flaps its tongue in your direction like it's trying to decide whether you're friend, foe, or lunch. Then it happens. From the tree line, fast and low, something streaks toward them. A predator. Short body, muscular legs, jaws wide, eyes narrow. It launches itself at the nearest grazer's flank, and fails. Because your tail moves first. You swing not wildly, not panicked, just precise. The tip hits the predator across the snout. Not hard enough to break anything, but hard enough to redirect its momentum. It stumbles. Your companion's tail follows, immediately slamming the creature's hind leg and sending it skidding sideways. 2 hits, 1 failed attack. The grazers scatter in every direction, confused and bleeding like clumsy birds. You don't chase. You don't need to. You just stand there, tails raised like banners. Historical fact. While we rarely think of tails as cooperative tools, some species of herd-based or semi-social dinosaurs show strong evidence of evolved group alert systems, likely through body positioning, synchronized motion, or auditory vibration. Tail awareness. It turns out wasn't just a solo survival mechanism, it was culture. You and your companion linger as the grazers shuffle away, still ungrateful. You didn't help them for praise. You did it because your tails noticed something before your eyes did. That's the point. That's always been the point. Joke break. You're basically the prehistoric version of a neighborhood watch, but instead of walkie-talkies, you've got 5-foot-long anxiety detectors strapped to your butt. You continue on. The land changes again. The soil dries. The trees thin. The sun peeks through at odd angles, filtering in like a lazy god trying to remember how to warm things. And then in the distance, you see more of them. Not grazers, not predators. Your kind. Scattered along a rocky slope are at least 7 individuals, all long-tailed, some crouched, some sunbathing, one asleep with its tail forming a complete spiral tip tucked under its chin, like a cat with ambitions. You stop. So does your companion. You don't run forward. You don't make noise. Instead, your tail hums against the ground, just a brief sequence. 3 thumps, pause, one more. Silence. Then, from 2 directions, the same rhythm echoes back. You look at your companion. They don't smile. You don't either. You don't even have the facial structure for it, but the air between you is suddenly warmer. This is what you've been heading toward. Not a herd, not a family. A network. A frequency. A language without words. You descend the slope, careful not to make sudden movements. One youngling runs towards you and then immediately trips over its own tail. It's not long yet, but it will be. You know the look. You remember it. You lived it. You spend the evening at the edge of the group. No one pushes. No one claims territory. Tails brush softly in passing, sending signals like casual hellos. You mimic their movements. They mimic yours. Odd fact. The star-nosed mole, one of the fastest eaters on Earth, uses its weird nose not just to sniff but to feel electrical signals through the soil. Nature doesn't waste appendages. It adapts them, enhances them, reassigns them. Tails in your case went from ballast to language, from balance to community. As night falls, the group begins to shift, uncoiling like an organism made of many bodies, tail to tail, like a sentient spiral. You find your place along the curve. Your companion settles just across from you, tails nearly brushing. No one speaks. But no one has to. Because if anything happens, if the earth rumbles, if the wind shifts, if a shadow falls across the clearing, you'll know. And so will every tail around you. It begins with silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the wrong kind. The kind that swells like a held breath. Every tail in the circle stills at once like strings pulled taut. Your tail is flat against the ground, vibrating faintly. You don't know what it's picking up yet, but it's not nothing. You press your snout into the dirt. Wait, wait. Then it hits a tremor. Not strong, but deep. Rolling beneath the surface like something enormous just turned over in its sleep. You stand. So does everyone else. Another tremor. Stronger. And then the wind changes. It doesn't blow. It falls. Downward, like the forest just inhaled too fast and forgot how to exhale. You hear it next. Not a roar, not a crash, a groan. Long, slow like bones grinding inside the earth. You felt quakes before. Tiny ones. Rock shifts. But this is different. This is not the land waking up. It's the sky falling down. Your tail lashes the earth once involuntarily. Dust jumps from the soil. Authoritative fact. Massive volcanic activity during the Mesozoic era caused sudden catastrophic ecosystem shifts. Not every extinction was a single moment. Many came in pulses triggered by tremors, atmospheric changes, and weeks of darkness. Fossil beds in India's Deccan Traps record layered ashfalls and carbon traces that suggest multiple extinction beats like an apocalypse playing in rhythm. You lock eyes with your companion across the clearing. They're already moving, not running, signaling. Their tail thrums the ground in short, urgent bursts. 4 taps. Long pause. Then 1. You don't know what it means, but the urgency is universal. The entire group stirs. You follow the signals, tails flicking in rhythm, navigating out of the clearing toward higher ground. The ferns have gone brittle. The trees tremble. Overhead a shadow thickens, not a cloud. A curtain of dust miles wide. You break into a trot, your tail counterbalancing perfectly now. No thought needed. It's an extension of your motion, guiding you around stones, across roots, away from the weak ground that might collapse underfoot. The sky darkens. It's still day, but the sun is gone. Behind you, the wind rises. Not natural, wrong pitch. It moans, and then comes the ash. It falls gently at first, light as feathers. But your tail knows better. It curls toward your belly, protective tight. You glance back, and that's when the world changes. From beyond the far ridge, the first wave hits a wall of wind and smoke and grit that flattens the old tree line like paper folding in a storm. You don't hear it until it's already ripping leaves from branches. The air gets hot fast. Joke break. You're now in the worst spa in Earth's history. Comes with a complimentary full-body volcanic exfoliation and zero chance of survival if you're not fast. You run. Everyone does. But this isn't a herd panic. This is coordinated. Each tail taps the ground. Each vibration spreads. You follow the pulses, not the bodies. Historians still debate whether primitive creatures could have collectively responded to seismic or airborne signals in real time. But there's emerging evidence in fossil trackways of synchronized movement during extinction layer events. Tonight, you're the evidence. Your tail lashes out as you jump a fallen trunk. It smacks a younger longtail behind you, pulling them out of a stumble. They chirp a soft thanks without sound. The higher ground isn't safe, just less unsafe. But there's a cave network above the ridge. You can smell the damp. As you approach, the wind worsens. Trees groan and snap. The dust thickens into something between smoke and clay. You breathe shallow, eyes sting. Your companion coughs, then collapse. The ridge buckles ahead of you. A landslide of ash and broken roots pours sideways, severing your path. You halt, not out of choice, because your tail did. It jams into the ground hard, flaring wide like a tripod. You teeter, then recover. Your tail just saved your neck? Off-topic fact. The pangolin, modern master of the tail roll, can flatten its body and anchor with its tail while balancing on loose terrain. What you've just done, basically that. But at 20 times the weight and with zero training. You reroute fast left uphill. The smoke is nearly opaque now. Everyone's silhouettes blur. But the tail's still visible, still moving. Then, blessedly, you see the cave, half buried, just wide enough. One by one, tails disappear into it. You and your companion are the last. You dive inside, tail first, feeling it catch against stone as it drags the last of you in. The ash roars past outside like a monster denied a meal. Inside, silence. Then rhythm. Taps, faint, slow, soothing. A tail beat from across the chamber. Then another. A language of reassurance. A prehistoric lullaby. You curl up, exhausted, tail wrapped around your chest like a promise. Outside, the sky has swallowed the sun. But inside, beneath layers of stone, the tails remember the pattern. And so do you. The cave breathes. Not in the poetic sense. Literally. Somewhere in its depths, air slips through ancient cracks filtered by a million years of limestone. It smells of wet rock iron and something slightly sweet like a memory trying to ferment into something useful. You lie still, surrounded by the others, your tail curled tight, twitching in your sleep. It's not just you anymore. You're part of something. Not a herd, not a family, but a pattern. A sequence. Every sleeping body has a tail, and every tail, even in rest, seems to keep time with some invisible clock. You dream of rhythms of taps, sways, beats. You didn't know you knew. Your tail moves in the dream independent, tapping out warnings, greetings, songs. And when you wake, it's still moving, just slightly. Something changed outside. The ashfall has slowed. You can feel it in the lightness of the tremors, the way the cave walls no longer hum like angry tuning forks. The others stir. One by one, they uncurl and test the air near the entrance. You do the same. The world is quieter now. Not better. Just covered. The trees outside are ghosts. Pale shapes under the thick, chalky blanket of fallout. Every step you take leaves a perfect print like you're walking through someone else's dream. Your tail trails behind, carving a long groove like a signature. You move uphill again, away from the valley of ash, towards anything green. Hours pass. Eventually, you find it a ravine protected from the worst of the blast, where ferns still breathe and water still trickles. You and your companion drink deeply, your tails twitching with subtle gratitude. Around you, the others begin to settle, cautiously, not claiming territory, just resting. Then they arrive. Not your kind. Similar build. Longer snouts. A few spots of color you don't recognize, sun-bleached reds, old golds. And their tails. Long, yes, but not like yours. More rigid, more controlled, less expressive. You tense. They step into view without hesitation. 3 of them. Scanning, judging. One flares its nostrils. Another makes a low, guttural noise that might be speech or just boredom. Then your companion steps forward. Their tail lifts high, curls once, then lowers slowly. The strangers hesitate. One of them mimics the motion poorly, too stiff, but an attempt. Communication. What follows is a standoff of rhythms. Tails tap and coil, some motions are mirrored, some are rejected. You watch from the sideline, tail poised, listening to every unspoken syllable. Authoritative fact. Some paleontologists propose that certain theropods used body language, particularly tail position and movement, as a dominant form of intraspecies, signaling much like dogs do today. Posture, angle, rhythm, more nuanced than roars or calls. Eventually, a shared rhythm emerges, simple. 4 taps, 2 paws, repeat. The strangers step aside. You're permitted through. Joke break. Congratulations, you've just passed the first prehistoric audition for So You Think You Can Tail Dance. You follow the group into their territory. It's not lush, but it's untouched by ash, shaded by thick canopy, sheltered, safe enough. And as you walk, you realize something odd. You're being watched, not with malice, with curiosity. The younger ones follow your tail with their eyes. One even mimics its curl with their own shorter version, then giggles an odd clicking sound, not unfriendly. You stop. Let your tail coil into a loop. The youngling copies. And just like that, a ritual begins. Others join in. No words, just tail gestures, simple loops, spirals, coils that mirror yours. You glance at your companion. Their tail's already doing a figure 8 in the dust. Show off. You follow suit. Circle, pause, tap, flick. The strangers are no longer strangers. The movement is familiar, collaborative. Historians still debate whether cultural transmission existed in prehistoric species. If one group could teach another, pass on behaviors that weren't purely instinctual. The fossil record is sparse, but the theory remains: movement is memory, and memory spreads. Off-topic fact. The lyrebird. One of the best mimics on Earth, can imitate not only the calls of other birds, but man-made sounds like camera shutters, car alarms, and chainsaws. It learns by watching, by listening. It doesn't need the language, it just needs the pattern. Your tail etches a pattern now. In dirt, in air, in memory. Later, when the group settles down to sleep, you notice something remarkable. One of the new juveniles, barely the size of your own tail, curves their back and tail into a perfect replica of the signal you gave earlier. Not for attention, just as a comfort, a remembered rhythm. You curl into yourself, tail looping twice around your belly, and sleep. For the first time in your short, chaotic life, you sleep without fear. You wake to the smell of damp moss and sun-warmed soil, the kind of morning scent that says nothing's actively trying to eat you right now. A rare luxury. You stretch slowly, letting your tail unspool like a lazy ribbon. It has grown again. Not dramatically, but enough to notice. You're running out of metaphors for how long it is now. It's longer than your torso, longer than your stride, and definitely longer than your patience some days. But you've stopped thinking of it as too long. It just is. Today, something strange happens. You're not hungry. You always wake hungry, Huey. That's biology. You're young, you're growing, your metabolism runs on pure chaos. But today, nothing. You sit in the soft dirt, tail gently flicking behind you, and realize you're full. Not in the belly maybe, but in the brain, in the bones. Like the urge to feed has been replaced by something quieter. Satisfaction. The others stir around you, your own kind, and the newer ones, the tail talkers. You're no longer two groups, just one laced together by silent rhythms and mutual respect. The juveniles bounce around like featherless puppies tail-tapping in mimicry games. You don't correct them, they'll figure it out. You meander toward a shallow basin where water collects under a curtain of vines. Your tail dips first, testing the depth. Cold, clear, safe. You drink, slowly, no rush. Then movement. You look up, but no one's near. You feel it through the tail first. A pulse in the ground. Not loud, not urgent, but off. Your tail coils into a defensive arch. Others notice. Within moments, the adults are positioned to tails splayed in concentric circles, all pointed outward. A living compass. It passes. Whatever it was, distant, massive, disinterested, keeps moving. No threat. Not today. Authoritative fact. Fossilized trackways from various species suggest herding behavior involving coordinated motion turns dispersals, even defensive rings. But until today, no one ever considered how much of that coordination came from tails, not eyes. You settle again, tail uncoiling like a sigh. And that's when it begins. A performance. Unprompted, one of the juveniles steps into the center of the basin. They begin tapping a little rhythm. Nothing fancy. Just paw-paw, tap, tail thump. Others join in. One twirls, another arches their spine and lets their tail loop like a skipping rope. You almost laugh. Then your companion nudges you forward. Seriously, you hesitate. Then your tail decides. You step into the ring and begin to move. Not just walk, dance. You've never done this before, but it's like you always knew how. Your tail guides the rest of your body in wide, sweeping gestures. You dip, sway, twist. Every motion becomes language, and the others respond. A chorus of tails echoing each movement. You're no longer a survivor. You're a signal. Odd fact. There's a species of seahorse that communicates through synchronized tail coiling before mating. Yes, seahorses. Nature is weird, but rhythm. Rhythm is everywhere. Your display is not about dominance, or hunger, or fear. It's celebration. When it ends, no one claps, no one cheers, but tails flick gently, respectfully, and that's enough. You sit, panting slightly. Your tail stretches behind you like punctuation at the end of a well-spoken sentence. That evening, the sky turns purple, deep and endless. The ash clouds have thinned, revealing stars that look unfamiliar. Maybe the sky rearranged itself while no one was watching. You lie on your side, tail curled beside you, and think about what it's become. Not a burden, not a weapon, a language, a tool that replaced your voice, your map, your eyes, and now maybe your appetite. You're eating less, that's the truth, not out of weakness, out of change. The long tail doesn't just cost calories, it saves them. Every choice you don't make, every danger you dodge before you even know it's coming, that's energy you never had to spend. Historians still debate whether certain dinosaurs experienced this kind of efficiency shift, evolving not just for strength, but for information, for awareness. It's a strange idea. But lying here under the stars, you feel like proof. Your tail rests quietly, now stretched along the earth like a long shadow. But even in sleep, it still flicks once in a while, listening, remembering. You dream in loops, not images, not sounds, just motion. Circles within circles. Your tail curls around your legs, then unwinds, then coils again. It's not a memory. It's a rhythm, a pattern deeper than thought. You wake in a forest that no longer looks like home. The ash has reached here overnight. It's lighter now, carried on slower winds, but it's fallen everywhere. A fine coat of pale dust clings to leaves and bark, muting the world into grayscale. Even the light has softened like the sun's been wrapped in gauze. Everyone is quieter today. Even the juveniles only tail tap when necessary. No games, no dancing. You hear it first, a crunch in the underbrush. Then your tail hears it better. It curves upward, stiffens, then draws your body back without asking your permission. Something moves through the ferns ahead. Low, slow, sniffing. You duck behind a log tail poised. It enters the clearing. At first glance, it's a pile of vegetation. At second glance, it's teeth. Dozens of them. A low-bodied predator built like a scaly mop with jaws. Its tail is laughable, stubby, and stiff, but what it lacks in balance it makes up for in hunger. It doesn't spot you, not yet, but it knows something's here. You freeze. Your tail flattens. The creature lumbers past a group of saplings. They don't move. You do just slightly. Enough to shift the soil. Enough for the thing to feel you. It turns. You sprint. It follows. But here's the difference it can't corner. Its balance is trash. Its tail is dead weight. Yours not even close. You dive through a thicket. Your tail wraps around a branch, swings you sideways like a pendulum, redirects you mid-leap. The predator crashes through the brush. Misses the turn. You skid under a fallen log tail dragging behind like a ribbon, then snap back up and run full speed toward the one place everyone avoids. The carnivorous thicket. You don't know what lives there, only that things enter and don't come out. But your tail is pulling you forward, not away. You break through the first line of dead vines and stop. It's not a single trap. It's dozens. Vines, some with hooked tips, some coiled like springs. Plants with sticky pads, thorned creepers. And in the middle of it all, bones. So many bones. From small dinosaurs. From predators. From your kind too. But your tail slows. Measures. Taps. You step forward carefully. Then another step. Your tail lifts to your shoulder height. Waves, once brushes aside a strand of vine that would have caught your neck. You duck. Step. Another vine snaps down and misses. You grin well internally. You don't have the facial muscles for a real one. Joke break. You're now officially in the prehistoric version of a laser security system from a heist movie. All you need is a theme music and a cool pair of shades. Behind you, the predator crashes into the vine wall. It howls. Then it thrashes. Wrong move. The vines react. A hooked creeper wraps around its neck. Another lashes its side. In a frenzy, it twists and more latch on. You don't watch. Your tail's already guiding you out the other side. You emerge covered in scratches but alive. Your tail is bleeding slightly. Just the tip. A narrow gash. You curl it to your chest, gently press it with your snout. Others find you an hour later. No one speaks. But they see the injury, and they know where you went. Historians still debate whether dinosaurs understood sacrifice or calculation in their choices, whether they ever knowingly risked danger for knowledge or territory. But when the others begin tail-tapping around you in slow, careful echoes of your own rhythm, it feels like an answer. Odd fact. There's a modern species of octopus that can detach one arm under threat. The arm continues moving, distracting the predator. It doesn't kill the octopus, but it changes how it moves forever. Your tail heals. Slowly, but you're more careful now. Not slower, sharper. You begin mapping new trails, carving safe paths through terrain once avoided. Others follow your routes, mimic your flicks. Your tail isn't just a signal now. It's a trailblazer. And for the first time, the group starts reshaping the forest not with claws, with tails. You watch them scrape moss from rocks and spirals, drag grooves into the dirt. A map is forming, written in loops and sways. And you're at the center of it. The land changes again. The air becomes heavier, not hot-charged. You smell it before you hear it, ozone, damp bark, the sour tang of disturbed earth. You climb a ridge flanked by stone pillars, cracked and leaning, like fossilized ribs of something impossibly old. Beyond it lies a basin, wide, shallow, ringed with black stones that look melted. The earth is smooth here, not eroded, but worn as if many bodies passed the same path over and over, dragging tails, pressing feet. There's no vegetation inside the ring, no birdsong above, just space, silence. Stillness. The others gather behind you. Dozens now, some from your first group, some strangers. A few still juveniles, tails twitching in messy imitation of the adults. They don't know yet what this place is, but your tail does. It curls low, nearly scraping the stone. Then it presses flat. Respect. You step into the basin. The temperature drops just slightly. You pass over the stone lip and immediately feel something shift. The rhythm in the earth is different, not dead. Stored. You sense the echoes of past tales, their patterns etched invisibly into the soil. You don't know what they meant, but your tail does. It starts tapping slow, deliberate. 1, 1, 2, pause, 1, 2, 3. Others follow. Tails echo the sequence, hesitant at first, then confident. Together you draw circles, spirals, loops, patterns that don't point to anything, just revolve. And slowly the purpose becomes clear, not survival, not defense, memory. Authoritative fact. Paleontologists have discovered certain fossil sites where hundreds of tail drag marks converge around central spaces often devoid of skeletal remains. Some theorize these were nesting zones. Others believe they were congregation sites for unknown social behaviors. Still others suggest something ritualistic. You circle the center of the basin, each loop worn smoother by tails before yours. You pause. Look down. There, faintly traced in the dust, is a tail pattern you've never seen. It spirals inward, then breaks suddenly, unfinished. Your tail trembles. Not from fear, from recognition. It mimics the broken spiral. Then adds one more curl, completes it. Something clicks in the air, not a sound, a feeling, like an idea passed between bones. The others begin to shift. Their tails change rhythm. The grooves in the basin deepen. A new pattern forms. One none of you have made before. Not a map, not a warning, just a gesture. Acknowledgement. The juveniles trace it clumsily, knocking into each other. But they smile, if not with mouths, then with movement. They understand enough. Off-topic fact. In the high Arctic, reindeer use subtle hoof taps in snow to communicate with herds during whiteout signals so faint that only those who've grown up with them can interpret. Culture, not instinct. This basin is no longer just a place, it's a book, and your tails are the writing. You rest at the edge of the ringtail, wrapped like a belt around your body. Your companion joins you. They don't tap, don't move, just sit close. You both listen. Beneath the stone, the ground hums with ancient tension, like something old and buried remembers you. There's a light rain now, barely misting, but it makes the stone smell sharp, electric. The grooves your tails left begin to fill with water, thin lines of mirrored sky. And somehow it looks like the pattern always belonged here. You glance upward, a break in the clouds, starlight again, dim but visible. Your tail flicks once in satisfaction. The basin breathes. No one speaks, but everyone understands. The rain thickens overnight. Not a storm, not a flood, just a constant, steady percussion. The forest softens under it. The moss swells. Leaves droop under the weight of droplets. Water fills every crease in the land, and the tail trails carved into the basin become rivulets. The spiral, your tail completed, now glimmers like a constellation pulled to the ground. You wake cold, but not alone. Everyone's clustered near the stone ring. Some curl in pairs, some sleep with tails wrapped together like rope. You stretch and your tail flicks water off its tip before coiling protectively again. Today is the kind of day when even predators don't bother. But you can't stay still. Your tail rises first, scanning the earth, sensing shifts too subtle for your eyes. It urges you up the eastern slope of the basin slowly, carefully. Mud gives under your feet, but the tail keeps you balanced. Behind you, a few others follow, including the juveniles bounding clumsily. One nearly slides off a root shelf, but your tail snaps forward and catches their ankle. No one says thank you, but they touch their tail to yours in passing. It's enough. The path becomes narrow, steep, strange. You're climbing over slick black stone that once flowed like water-frozen lava. The air changes again, cooler but metallic. Then the mist parts and you see it. A ridge? Wide, flat, unnatural. like something peeled the forest back and left a scar. And on that scar bones, hundreds, arranged not in chaos but in alignment. Skulls turned the same direction, spines curling toward a central axis, and tails, dozens of tails, some fossilized mid-sweep as if they'd frozen mid-gesture. You walk among them in silence, your own tail trailing through shallow puddles. You step carefully, respectfully. Authoritative fact. A site in Patagonia known as the Bone Ribbon revealed a fossil bed of juvenile sauropods with spines and tails all positioned in curved formation. No predators, no trauma. Some scientists believe they died in a sudden gas release or environmental collapse, but the formation hints at communal behavior, maybe even ritual. You recognize something here. These were long tails, like you, but longer. Older, you reach the center of the formation and stop. There, pressed into cooled volcanic stone, is a tail print, deeper than the others. Not a strike, a placement, intentional. It loops once, then again, then ends in a graceful spiral that vanishes into the rock. You place your own tail atop it. It fits. Not perfectly, but closely enough that the bones in your spine seem to echo. You exhale, and your tail stays, pressed flat, still. You don't move, you just listen. And for a moment, the ridge hums. Not wind, not rain. Memory. You realize this is what your kind did when the world changed. When the skies fell and the ground buckled and the ash came thick, they didn't run. They left messages. This isn't a graveyard. It's a library. Your companion steps beside you. No words, just a touch of their tail to yours. They rest beside the print, watching mist curl through old ribs. Joke break. Imagine being remembered forever because of your tail writing. No pressure or anything, just prehistory's most misunderstood authors. The juveniles roam the outer edges, mimicking the spiral tail marks with sticks, tapping into puddles, trying to leave their own stories. You watch them with the strange calm of someone who used to be that reckless. And you realize something else. Your tail hasn't grown, not in days. It's done, not dead, not fading, just finished. Odd fact. Many modern reptiles experience terminal tail growth, a point where the tail stops lengthening and focuses instead on strengthening, thickening, or calcifying. Function over form, completion over growth. You feel it in your spine. Your balance is perfect now. You can stop running. You can remember. You step off the print. Let others see it. Then your tail draws one final mark in the ash-slicked stone. A spiral with a gap, just like before. But this time you don't finish it. You walk away. Let the next one do that. Behind you, rain glazes the spiral, and the ridge breathes beneath your feet. The sun never returns the same way twice. Today it comes thin and cold, filtering through a haze that never quite lifts. Shadows stretch longer than they should. The mist clings low, hugging the forest floor like it's afraid of heights. You move slowly, deliberately, not out of fear, but because you no longer have anything to chase, or anything chasing you. You step through the upper grove alone, just you and your tail, which no longer twitches, no longer flails. It flows, like a memory-given muscle, like silence with weight. The others are behind you now, still near, but content to walk their own arcs, their own spirals. The juveniles, now older, loop their tails in mock duels, then collapse into the ferns, laughing in a language only the soil understands. You stop at a shallow bluff overlooking the water. Below, the world is still, not peaceful, quiet. There's a difference. The kind that settles in after the loudest part of history is over. You lower yourself slowly, folding your limbs beneath you, curling your tail into a perfect circle. You used to trip over it. Now you rest within it. You stare at the sky, pale and smeared with vapor, and you remember things that were never yours. Not really. Just feelings. The rhythm of danger, the pulse of community, the way tails once moved before they were still. And somewhere far behind you, you hear the sound of tapping. Not alarm, not signal, just someone practicing. You smile not with your mouth, but with the slow, gentle sway of your tail tip. It's time. You lie down fully, the way your kind does when they know there's nothing left to fight or fear. The tail tucks around you one last time, warm and heavy, a blanket that remembers. Beneath you, the stone waits patiently, softening, preparing to take your shape. Authoritative fact. Some of the most complete dinosaur tail fossils ever discovered have shown evidence of ossification and preservation in positions of rest, curled, coiled, laid deliberately beneath the body, not collapsed, chosen. Off-topic fact. The oldest known musical instrument is a 60,000-year-old flute carved from vulture bone. But maybe once the first music wasn't blown, it was beaten into the earth by creatures who spoke only in taps. The last light touches your spine, you exhale, one final twitch, then nothing. You are not forgotten. You are a part of the spiral. You were born tail first into a world shaped by rhythm and survival. Unlike the others of your kind, your tail outpaced your body from the very start, growing faster, acting sooner, and learning to move before you did. What began as a burden became your map, your voice, your guardian. It struck predators before you even saw them, tapped messages in the dirt when no other language existed, and carried you often literally through the chaos of a young, shifting earth. As you grew, you encountered others, some like you, some not, but none with tails as long or as alive. Your tail allowed you to navigate burrows, survive ambushes, ride the earth's tremors, and sense danger before it struck. In time, you learned that tails weren't just for balance or combat, they were for connection. You watched as entire groups began to communicate through tail beats, echoing rhythms passed down like oral stories without mouths. You danced, you signaled, you fought, you fled, and in the end, you remembered. Because your tail became something more than a limb, it became legacy. In a basin carved by time, you completed a spiral etched by those who came before. And then just as gently, you stepped away, allowing others to write their own. When you finally rested, it wasn't from defeat. It was because your pattern was complete. Curled in stone, fossilized in silence, you became one more signal in the ancient song of the earth.